is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Black Horse. We are Southwest.
After playing 19 of their last 23 games on the road, your Rangers are finally back in the Lone Star State. One Ranger who's especially thankful to be back home is tonight's starter, Martin Perez. He has won 9 of his last 10 decisions here in Arlington. Tonight, for the first time since the All-Star break, it's baseball time in Texas from Globe Life Park as the Rangers host the Oakland Athletics next on Fox Sports Southwest. Texas Rangers baseball is presented by high-speed internet from AT&T. Well, Mother Nature cooperating a bit tonight. She turned on the air conditioner. It's cooled down to a very nice 89 degrees, but the Rangers are so happy to be back at Globe Life Park tonight, the first of 3 against the Oakland A's. And welcome in, everyone, along with Tom Greaves, Steve Busby. Delighted you could join us for the Rangers' 100th game of the year tonight. Rangers at 57-42 and looking to extend their lead in the AL West. Martin Perez gets the start tonight, Tom, and he's happy to be back home in their friendly confines.
Well, you're right, Buzz. You mentioned the Rangers are be glad to be back home.
Yep.
Martin is very glad to be back home. He struggled in his last 3 starts. He's given up 19 earned runs in his last 15 2/3. But when you look at what he's done in his last 14 starts at home, not just the 9-1 record, but the great 2.33 ERA, you've got a guy that's glad to be back home, put the last 3 games behind him, start another good streak. He's taken the ball every 5 days all season long. He's maintained a great attitude. He says, I have to get better, and tonight be a good time to do it.
Yeah, it'd be a great time to whip up some great home cooking for the fans. You'd love to get off on a good start here this evening in Game 1 of this 7-game homestand. Well, the Rangers and the A's coming up. We'll have the starting lineups of the first pitch right after this. Baseball on Fox Sports Southwest is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer today during the Ford Freedom Sales Event and see why Ford is the best in Texas. By high-speed internet from AT&T. Get a deal worth talking about. Get high-speed internet from AT&T. By Budweiser, not backing down since 1876. This Bud's for you. And by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. Now, kind of a warm and muggy evening here at Globe Life Park. Nice crowd filing in. And before we get things underway this evening, let's head down and check in with Emily Jones.
Well, Buzz, the month of July has been none too kind to these Texas Rangers. However, they do have a chance to finish out the month on a high note, closing it out with 7 straight here at home, and fortunately able to build a little bit of momentum, taking 2 out of 3 in Kansas City. Here's what AB had to say about getting back to where they were before July.
We have to find a way how to get back. We know that, in the season you have highs and lows, and I think we went through our lows already. And it's time to go back and play the game like we normally do. Win ball games, win series, and trying to create more separation between the team behind us.
And Adrian says that's really the key, the fact that this team has been there this season. They know what it takes to put together a really long string of good baseball, and they know they're capable. It's just a matter of getting it all to work at the same time, which is, of course, one of the biggest challenges in this game, period. Buzz.
Yeah, Emily, good points. And, the last time they saw this Oakland ball club, they began a 7-game winning streak by taking the last 3 of that series in Oakland in June. So we'll see what Jeff Bannister's team has up their sleeves here tonight. Tom is going to tell you about the Oakland lineup that Martin Perez will face.
Well, Jed Lowry leads off at second base. Former Ranger Jake Smolinski, who's been very hot, will bat second. Josh Reddick is the right fielder. Danny Valencia has played well against the Rangers this year. He's at first base. Chris Davis has been a Ranger killer this year. He's hit 5 home runs in 7 games against the Rangers. Billy Butler is the DH. Ryan Healy is at third base. Marcus Semien is the shortstop, and catching, batting ninth, Matt McBride.
And that lineup for Bob Melvin tonight, facing the 25-year-old southpaw Martin Perez, a Venezuela native, making his team-high 21st start of the year. And Martin Perez comes in 7-7. He has lost his last 3 decisions. That ERA has climbed up to 4.37 in the league, hitting .274 against him. Against Oakland, Martin Perez has accumulated a 4-5 career record in 10 starts. This year, he is 1-1 in the 2 starts against the Athletics. So about ready to kick off this 7-game homestand. 3 with the A's, 4 with Kansas City over next weekend. And the Rangers hope to build on what was a well-played last 2 games in Kansas City, winning 7-4 and 2-1 to put together their first 2-game winning streak since way back in June. The last couple of days of June was the last time they won 2 in a row. They were at the end of a 4-game winning streak then. Jed Lowry, switch hitting second baseman, takes strike 1. We are underway. It's 8 minutes after 7 Central Daylight Time. Lowry, .275, a couple of home runs, and 25 driven in. And he's going to be aboard with a leadoff single as that pitch kind of hung out over the plate, and Lowry leading off with a base hit to left for the A's. We will take a look at the Ranger defense, delivered to you tonight by DeMontron RV. Delano DeShields gets his 4th straight start in left field. Ian Desmond in center, Nomar Mazara in right. Moreland and Profar on the right side. Andrus and Beltre on the left side of the Ranger infield, with Bobby Wilson back behind the plate. Bobby nursing a little bit of a sore back, but he is good to go. Catching Martin Perez tonight. 1 on, nobody out, Jake Smolinski. Former Ranger takes inside, and Smolinski, the hottest thing going in Oakland and maybe in all of baseball right about now. He hit over 500 in the just completed series for the A's against Tampa Bay. For the year, Smolinski a .333 clip with half a dozen home runs. Double play ground ball. Elvis, Profar, Moreland. That is what Martin Perez has done as well as anybody in baseball. Induced that double play grounder, and the Rangers comply by turning it over. That is the 123rd double play turn by the Rangers.
Yeah, Buzz, it seemed like earlier in the season, Martin was getting those a couple of times a game. Recently, it's slowed down a little bit, so it's nice to see him get the sinker after hanging the curveball, come right back and get 2 quick outs. That's got to feel good to him. You know, he struggled, as we mentioned, the last 3 games. Lead off rope to right to left field, and you know, you got to block out of your mind, here we go again. And he made the pitch, got the double play, and right back on track.
Well, he would be very human if he felt that, and we all would feel that, I think.
Exactly.
And he did a great job of getting that 2 ball. Here's Josh Reddick. Takes inside, 1 ball and 1 strike. Reddick, half a dozen home runs, .295 average. Reddick, of course, has always given the Rangers fits. But against Martin Perez, Reddick has not fared very well, as you can say the same thing for most left-handers. Martin Perez allowing only a .170 average to left-handed hitters this year. One and 2. That will even the count. Loken comes in having won 3 straight. They won the last 3 ball games in the series against Tampa Bay in Oakland. Bob Melvin's club at 45 and 54. They are in 4th place in the AL West, trailing the Rangers by a full dozen ball games. Offensively challenged, the Oakland A's this year, the 11th in the league in scoring, as Reddick shoots 1 foul. Now, you look at the statistics for Oakland and you say, well, now this ball club doesn't look on paper like they could match up with anybody, but given what they've done since the All-Star break, and that's called up a couple of young players, Ryan Healy most notably. They have inserted Jake Smolinski, and Doug Melvin said, look, you know, we've got some younger players that need the opportunity, and they have answered the bell. They've gone 7-3 since the All-Star break. So this is kind of a tough matchup. If you take them lightly, you'll find yourself on the losing end of a series very quickly. 1 hopper to Elvis. Moreland comes off the bag, can't get back on in time, and Reddick will be aboard with a 2-out error.
Well, that's too bad, because that's about as routine a play for Elvis as he'll ever get. He's got the ball in plenty of time. Doesn't look like he does anything wrong. Takes his time. He just throws a sailor, and Mitch can't keep his foot on the bag. So it would have been a 10-pitch inning. Hopefully doesn't turn into much more than that.
Yeah, that's something the Rangers have had difficulty with in the last couple of weeks. And defense has come up with some, well, very routine mistakes. And see if Martin Perez can work around that here. First ball swinging deep to center field by Valencia, and that ball's up on Greens Hill. Well, there's the answer. Could the Rangers work around it behind Martin Perez? The answer is no, as Danny Valencia, first ball swinging, hits his 13th home run of the year, and the A's lead at 2-0.
Now, even with the error, there's still 2 outs and a man on first. So, you know, the pitcher still has to work out of the jam. At the same time, when you see the little jam shot that Reddick hit, and you assume after the double play that you're out of the inning with 10 pitches, that's a little disconcerting. Comes back with a fastball right down the middle of the plate, and Valencia, who's a very good hitter against left-handed pitching, .359 as a matter of fact, hits it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, Martin has to be careful here. He needs to get himself under control. He's kind of stomping around out there and showing some disgust. He's dealing to a guy in Chris Davis who can do the same thing that Valencia did if you're not careful, and that's hit the ball out of the ballpark. Davis with 23 home runs, that .249 average, nothing to be overly concerned about, but the 23 home runs are. 1 ball and 1 strike. Martin kind of looking around saying, what in the world just happened? And the frustration that Martin does not even attempt to hide, showing on his face. You know, he talked about this in his last start out in Anaheim. The ability to wipe that off and get back to work throwing quality pitches immediately. Doug Brocail went out a couple of times in the start that Martin had against the Angels. talked to him about that, hey, the past is past. Now let's get back down to doing what we need to do right now, what you have control over. Doug keeping a very close eye on his young left-hander. And 3 balls and a strike now. Chris Davis hitting 5th. He'll be followed by the designated hitter tonight, Billy Butler. Martin to the plate. And he lost him. Well, the home run and then the walk. Now Billy Butler coming out.
16, Billy Butler.
Umpiring crew tonight, Bill Miller, the crew chief, calling balls and strikes this evening. Todd Tishner at first base. Ryan Blackney at second. And Brian Knight down the line at third. Well, here's Butler handling the DH chores. Billy Butler, the former Kansas City Royals, second year with the A's, and he has been pretty much relegated to DH duty against left-handers, or being in the lineup against left-handers. Duty at first base from time to time. 256. Had a home run in yesterday's ball game. That was his first off of a left-hander this year. Only has 3, as you saw. No balls and 2 strikes. Billy Butler, after the ball game yesterday, a little upset about his lack of consistent playing time, and vented a little bit to the press. But everything's smoothed over today. Perez a check of first. Ripped to left. Delino back a couple of steps, and he has it. That will do it. A's come up with a couple of runs on 2 hits, and they leave 1 after half inning. A's 2, Rangers coming up. Tom's going to tell you now about the Southwest Airlines Rangers batting order.
Jurickson Profar gets the start at second base tonight, and also a chance to lead off. Nomar Mazara is second. Ian Desmond will bat third in center field. Adrian Beltre is the cleanup hitter. Rougned Odor bats fifth. He will DH tonight. Elvis is playing shortstop, batting sixth. Mitch Moreland is at first base. Bobby Wilson, the catcher, bats eighth. Batting ninth, the left fielder, Delino DeShields.
And that lineup for Jeff Bannister facing Daniel Mengden for the second time this year. Mengden, a product of Texas A&M. Pitched his college ball down there, grew up in the Houston area. Fastball, changeup, and slider, and the command has been a weak spot for him. Rangers will try and make him get that changeup up to a hittable level. You start swinging that changeup down out of the strike zone. It's a pretty short night if you're a hitter. Jurickson Profar, the switch hitting infielder for the Rangers, playing at second base tonight, starting things off. Profar broke an 0 for 20 streak yesterday with a late game single in Kansas City. 1-2 now.
That's one of those fastballs from our angle. It looked like it was way inside. But then when you see the Fox box, you see it was a good pitch right on the inside part of the plate.
Made me wipe my glasses off.
Yeah.
I'm seeing stuff. Again with that unusual windup. Way up over the head, the 1-2 pitch. Right center field, Reddick moving to his right. Profar flies out.
Unless you have the luxury of a camera right directly behind second base, and very seldom do you see that, you really can't tell exactly whether a pitch is inside or outside. It just looks entirely different. Especially when the hitter raises his hands and acts like it's inside.
Yeah. Oh, one gone. Here's Nomar Mazara. Mazara brings that 6-game hitting streak into play here tonight, and Nomar showing distinct signs of coming out of that month-long offensive malaise. The game of adjustments kind of caught up with Nomar there for a while, and now he has decided to make his counter punch. His second counter punch he's had to make, and so far has been successful for the last week. 1 ball and 1 strike. Take a look at this windup.
This is kind of a throwback to the old days. Over the head windup, a little bit of a hesitation like you see a lot of Japanese pitchers employ.
A little bit outside, 2-1. I guess from a hitter standpoint, Tom, it'd be a little tough to adjust to if you hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I think it is too, because yeah, you're right. And you haven't seen it before, and you don't see it anymore in the big league. It seems like almost every pitcher tries to minimize the movement in his delivery to simplify it, so you don't see all those moving parts. I think what you just have to do as a hitter is kind of disregard the first part of the windup, let him get to the top when he starts to throw the ball, and then try to pick up the ball like you would if he didn't have all that movement. In other words, right at the beginning, right, he gets the sign right here. Don't pay any attention now until right here.
Is that easier said than done?
Sure,
or
yeah, it is, because you know you're looking in that direction,
yeah,
and you say, okay, I'm going to wait, but you still see all of this, and you can't close your eyes.
Right.
So yeah, I think you have to have a little discipline, and it doesn't hurt when you've seen him several times. This will be the second time the Rangers have seen him. Now, if he stays with the team over the course of years, when you play them 6 different series, you might see him 4 times a year, and then it probably would be a little bit different.
That's outside, 3-2.
But he also has pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a good fastball with movement, and we haven't seen his changeup yet, but it's coming.
Right.
And it's a pretty good combination.
Now 3-2 to Mazara. Nomar trying to get aboard here with 1 out. Mengen with the payoff pitch. Slice down the left field line. That is going to work its way back into the seats, and we'll try it again. Well, Mengen pitched very well against the Rangers. They saw him out in Oakland. Worked into the 7th inning, and he'd retired 15 straight at one point before Ian Desmond got him for a home run. He only gave up 2 runs, one of them unearned in that game. That was the game that Colby Lewis took the perfecto into the 8th inning. Another 3-2 pitch. And another foul ball. Well, Mazara making it tough on Mengen. Nomar really the only hitter, as you see Ian Desmond in the on-deck circle. Mazara the only hitter that really has swung the bat well since the All-Star break, or swung it well consistently. I mentioned that 6-game hitting streak. This is the Rangers' 10th game since the All-Star Classic. Got him swinging. There's that high fastball, and even though the radar gun only says 93, that gets on you pretty quickly.
Number 20,
Ian Desmond steps in. We'll take a look at the A's defense. Smolinski in center, flanked by Davis in left and Reddick in right. Danny Valencia that started first. Lowry joins him on the right side. Marcus Semien and Ryan Healy on the left side of the diamond, with Matt McBride behind the plate for Daniel Mengden. Well, here's Desmond. Ian at 3-11. Taking back that last pitch to Nomar Mazara. That fastball up above belt high. And that's the area on the fastball that Ranger hitters are going to try to get away from swinging at very frequently. That ball's hit well to right field. Reddick is back. He is looking up. Goodbye. Ian Desmond, opposite field, his 19th home run of the year. It's 2-1 Oakland.
Both home runs came on first pitch fastballs. Valencia pulled his a little bit left center field. Ian went the other way, high, and about 4 rows back to right field. Mengden hasn't given up a lot of home runs this year. That's his 5th home run that he's given up. He's given up a lot of walks, but not a lot of home runs. Fastball came back toward the middle of the plate, though, and Ian made solid contact with it.
Well, 2 out still. Here's Adrian Beltre. Take strike 1.
That's what we've seen from Ian all season long, a slashing line drive type swing that hits balls from foul line to foul line with power.
In tight. That sets Adrian's feet in motion. 1-1. Beltre 274, 14 home runs, 60 driven in. That home run by Desmond, by the way, gave him 60 RBI to catch Adrian Beltre for the team leadership. That's a base hit to center field. Now, other people might try to make him get the fastball down, not Adrian. But I don't care where you throw it. I like that.
Adrian is not a guy that's going to walk a lot, but it doesn't keep him from being a good hitter because he can hit pitches that are high. That one was actually in the strike zone. Didn't look like it when we saw it in live action, but right at the top of the strike zone.
So a 2-out home run followed by a single. 1 on, 2 out. Odor handling the DH chores tonight. Rougned coming off a 3-hit game yesterday afternoon in Kansas City. .278 the average. Or Rougned Odor hit his 18th home run of the year on Friday night in Kansas City. Came off a tough left-hander too, and Danny Duffy. That'll slice deep down the line, but out of play to left. Odor showing you the kind of power that had home run distance, about 20 feet foul. But Rougned, that short little powerful stroke. Well, he really puts a jolt into it when he makes solid contact. No, 0-2. Rougned has at least 1 hit in each of his last 3 games. Got him swinging. That breaking ball down and in, and that'll do it for the Rangers. But Ian Desmond gets the Rangers on the board, his 19th home run of the year, going the opposite field. A run on 2 hits and 1 left. After 1, Oakland 2 and the Rangers 1. chance to take advantage of $10 Tuesday. The tickets for the A's Rangers game tomorrow night are just $10. Add on a $10 meal deal when you purchase them online. And plus, all fans on Tuesday receive $10 parking. Visit TexasRangers.com/specials. Get your $10 Tuesday tickets for tomorrow night. Ryan Healy, the young third baseman, just called up at the All-Star break for the Athletics, leading things off. He's the number 7 hitter. Be Healy, Marcus Semien, and Matt McBride. Martin Perez trying to shake off the effects of a 2-run first inning. Hard to see Danny Valencia's 2-out home run. Healy a 278 average. 2-1. Got to keep that water coming, guys. There you go. Temperature down to a very mild 87 degrees. Out of play. Had a little rain earlier. Kind of moistened down the infield dirt. Made it nice and sticky out here. You don't have any need for pine tar right away. Pitchers don't, and hitters.
Yeah, I would say down in the camera well where Emily sits, it's got to be very sticky. You got a little fan up here. Ours isn't too bad.
It's extremely sticky, Tom. I can confirm this. So can my hair. It can confirm this as well.
You need a fan down there, Em?
I do have a fan.
Do you?
Our sweet Malcolm has provided me with a fan. I am very well taken care of down here.
Good.
6 bottled waters, a fan, a television, a microphone. What else could a girl ask for?
Glad to hear it, Em. We were worried about you, but not anymore.
I appreciate the concern.
And Ryan Healy pops out to Jurickson Profar. Before Marcus Semien comes up, we're going to see how well taken care of Jim Knox is.
Buzz, I'll take a fan out here if it's okay. Giving out fans.
Sure.
Hey, speaking of fans, we got the Texas Edge. This is the 8U World Series, USSSA World Series champion out of Granbury. Good to have you guys at the game. You having a good time so far, buddy? There we go. Coach, congratulations. You guys finished #1 and also #1 in the nation, huh?
We did. These kids are awesome.
All right, well, good to have you guys out here. Enjoy the game. Watch out for foul balls. You almost had a couple of them here. All right, guys.
Profar sprawling to make that grab. Throws out Semien. Nice play. Well, Jurickson Profar the last several days has made, seems like a highlight reel play every day.
I saw him make on TV, Buzz, one of those plays on the road trip at shortstop went out way to his left and showed his arm strength. This one's just great hands staying with a hard hit one-hopper. And when Jurickson was playing shortstop in Frisco, I can remember scouts coming through here, Bob Johnson in particular, and I asked him how Profar looked down there, and he said, I saw a whole homestand. I saw him play 7 games, and he made 2 or 3 plays that you don't see many big league shortstops make. We haven't had a chance to see him on a regular basis because he's been hurt for a couple of years, and now he's in more of a utility role, kind of an everyday role, but playing different positions. But when he was coming through the minor leagues, he was a shortstop that was rated way above average defensively.
I remember Steve Buechele was his manager there at Frisco. And we'll talk about Jurickson as the game goes on. A very nice, well-needed 1-2-3 inning. 1.5 in the books. The A's 2, the Rangers 1 on Fox Sports Southwest. Sports Southwest is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer today during the Ford Freedom Sales Event and see why Ford is the best in Texas. The Rangers trailing 2-1 as they come to bat here in the bottom of the second inning. Elvis Andrus leading things off. He shoots one to right, but that is right at Josh Reddick. So one pitch and one away. Elvis makes that right turn at first base. The direct pass back to the Ranger bench. Daniel Mengden now will face Mitch Moreland. Moreland steps in with a .233 average, 13 home runs. And he has driven in 37. It's showing signs in that last few games of that road trip of really coming to life. He swung the bat extremely well, had a couple of home runs. A low strike, 0-1. It's with a couple of home runs on the road trip. Hit .273, went 6 for 22. At 9 games after the All-Star break. Nothing at 2 now.
Well, Mengden is a college pitcher who was a high draft choice, 4th round, who got to the big leagues quickly. He was in the minor leagues earlier this year for around 45 innings, and you add that to what he had in the past, which was minor league innings never acquired above A ball. Totals about 190 innings of minor league experience, which isn't a lot, but he was an accomplished college pitcher, and the A's have given him the opportunity to pitch in the big leagues without a lot of minor league seasoning. He has struggled the last month. His ERA is 9 in the month of July.
Yeah, he gets his 3rd strikeout here as Mitch waving at a high outside fastball.
Well, he's been tough on the Rangers. 1 earned run in his prior start against the Rangers. Looked like a cutter there that fooled Mitch. Spun a lot, didn't cut very much, stayed up and out over the plate. And Mitch looked like he was fooled by it a little bit. I don't think we've seen maybe one changeup. The ball that Odor fouled down the left field line looked like a changeup. But he hasn't broken that out yet.
Well, here's Bobby Wilson hitting in the number 8 spot. Foul back. Now, Mengden originally was a member of the Astros organization. They drafted him out of A&M, and he rose rather quickly through the first 2 levels of the Astros organization. Then came over to Oakland in that deal that sent Scott Kazmir down to Houston. Right guy at the right spot at the right time for Oakland as far as getting him to the big leagues. Healy sets himself and throws out Bobby Wilson. Mengden, like his mound opponent, Martin Perez, a 1-2-3 second. After 2, Oakland leading 2-1.
The A's by a score of 2-1 as we head to the top of the third here at Globe Life Park in Arlington. And coming up this Saturday, it is a very big day here at Globe Life Park. Not only is Michael Young being inducted into the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, but he will have his very own bobblehead, complete with 3 of his very good friends, Pudge Rodriguez, Adrian Beltre, and Nolan Ryan, all a part of the Franchise for Bobblehead giveaway presented by Medical Center of Arlington. This is guaranteed to be one of the most sought-after bobbleheads of the season, if not in a very long time. The first 15,000 fans, 14 or over, through the doors, get one of these gems to go in their collection, guys.
All right, Ed, thank you. Jed Lowrie pounding one to center, and he eludes Ian Desmond out there. Lowrie gave that thing a ride, hit well up on the wall, right next to the 404 marker. And a last-second leap by Desmond. I think he got fooled as to how far that ball was going to carry.
It looked like the ball carried pretty well today. The ball Valencia hit carried well. Lowrie's had a couple of fastballs to hit. He's ripped one to left field for a base hit, and gets that one over Ian in left center field.
So the third hit of the night, second extra base hit. And a chopper up the middle off the bat of Smolinski. He'll get the runner over to third as Profar throws out Smolinski. Lowrie at third down with 1 out, and Josh Reddick coming up.
Good job by Smolinski. He knows what his job is in that situation. Hit the ball to the right side, move the runner, and you could tell by the inside-out swing that he took, that's exactly what he was trying to do. First time up, he hit the ground ball for a double play, but that time he hit the ground ball and moved the runner. That's why he's getting high fives for grounding out to second base.
Well, the Rangers now pull the infield all the way in. And a hot shot right at Mitch Moreland, who casually steps on first, and Reddick on one pitch will pick up his own bat, take it back to the dugout.
I'd like to see it try to score on that ground ball. Reddick got a fastball, hit it hard, and Mitch caught it like it was a routine grounder. That's when you just react and make the play. Hopefully it doesn't take a bad hop on you.
2 outs now. Lowrie still anchored at third. Here's Danny Valencia, who hit the bomb of a home run in that first inning, his 13th of the year. Hit it to dead center. Gets a breaking ball on the first pitch for strike 1. Valencia now a .302 hitter. 13 home runs, 36 RBI. Loops one down the right field line. That is going to fall in for a double. In to score Lowrie. Valencia to second. He is in with the RBI base hit, and it is 3-1 Oakland. Valencia has driven in all 3 runs.
Well, Valencia gets his hits against the Rangers. No doubt about that. A pitch that's not a strike. It's several inches outside. Kind of goes with the pitch and just serves it out there and kept it fair.
So a pair of doubles in the inning. A's add on to their lead, now leading by 2. And here's Chris Davis, who walked his first time. Couldn't get the changeup, 0-1. Chris Davis, who set his career best home run year last year at 27 home runs. He is on pace to shatter that mark this year. Chop foul. He finds himself down in the count. 0-2 to Perez. The left-hander okays the sign, a check of second. Left field, Delino on the move. He can't get it. 1 hop and off the wall. Valencia scores into second with the RBI double. Chris Davis. It is 4-1 Oakland. Chris Davis, another RBI. against the Rangers this year. That is 16 runs driven in 8 games.
Yeah, the pitch was on the inside corner, but it was about belt high. Not much of a challenge for Davis.
Well, the A's using the double here in the third inning. They have 3 of them. They pushed across a couple of runs. 4-1, and Billy Butler, who lined sharply to left field to end the first inning, will step in. Mentioned Butler pretty much relegated to playing against left-handers. He does have a .304 average against left-handers this year. Nothing in 1 on the foul ball.
Well, Butler last year had a pretty mediocre year for him, for sure. Hit .250, hit 15 home runs, knocked in 65 runs. But when the A's signed him to the multi-year contract, somewhere around $10 million a year for 3 years, they anticipated production that approached what he did for Kansas City, and that just hasn't been the case.
Yeah, he was pretty much a 15 to 20 home run guy, but he would have 40, 50 doubles a year.
Yeah.
And drive in a lot of important runs for the Royals, and that, you're right, Tom, that hasn't happened in Oakland. No balls, 2 strikes. Now 1-2. Nice stop by Bobby Wilson. Martin trying to put the cap on this inning. He had done a very nice job by getting Josh Reddick for the second out. He had Lowry at third base. Kept the ball in the infield and looked like he'd have a chance to get out of the inning, but back-to-back doubles with 2 outs. Valencia and Davis had pushed across a couple of runs. And there's another ball down the line. This one headed to the corner. In to score Davis. Butler on his way to second. He will pull in with the 4th double of this inning. It is a 5-1 Oakland lead.
Yeah, right now, Martin just doesn't have an answer for the A's hitters. He's trying to mix up his pitches, trying everything he can do to make pitches and get outs. Just hasn't been able to do it. And that's a pretty good example of it right there. There's his fastball, about 6 inches off the plate inside. And Butler still able to get a pretty good piece of it and knock it down the left field line.
No, Doug Brocail out to see if he can't change the routine a little bit. Billy Butler with the 4th double of the inning, his 25th RBI of the year, and his 14th double of the season. The A's doing a lot of 2-out damage here in the 3rd inning. Ryan Healy with his second at bat of the evening. He popped out to second, leading off the second. High pop foul that will twist back into the seats. Moreland over to take a look, but that's 10 rows back. Mentioned the A's. If you discount the numbers a bit, just the overall statistical numbers, averages, and things like that, they've won their last 3 and 7 out of 10 since the break. They've also compiled a 21-25 road record. Moreland up the ladder, comes down with it. And Mitch, a leaping grab, that will do it. But the A's get 4 doubles. They score 3 times and leave 1 after 2.5, 5-1 Oakland. Rodriguez and Rangers captain this Tuesday at Whataburger. He'll be on the Whataburger on East Broad Street in Mansfield. Don't miss this chance to win some great prizes and meet Pudge at Whataburger. Visit TexasRangers.com/appearances for more information. Well, Rangers have some work to do. Delino DeShields leading off. Rangers trailing by 4 now. And Delino, the hero of yesterday's ball game. Shields, the game-winning home run. Had quite an afternoon. Went 2 for 3, a home run, a double. He also walked, stole a base. All from that number 9 slot. He's down there again, and he's going to get a base hit to open up the Ranger third. No one on, nobody out, top of the order coming up at first. We're going to send it back to Dana Larson for a Chevy game brief.
The second baseman, Jurickson Profar.
All right, Dana, thank you. The Rangers trying to start an uprising here in the 3rd inning. Delino on board. Will elicit a toss from Daniel Mengden. Jurickson Profar at the plate, fly to right as he led the game off this evening for the Rangers. Jurickson a .287 average. One ball and no strikes. Profar just 2 for 22 on the road trip. Really struggled through a tough drought. We mentioned 0 for 20 that he snapped yesterday. Base hit in the 9th inning. Profar in that leadoff spot, which was the position in the batting order that Jeff Bannister put him in when he came up to take the place of Rougned Odor, as Odor was serving that suspension. 7-game suspension, 8-game suspension, I guess it was. And Jeff Bannister just saw Jurickson Profar hit safely in 12 straight games up there. One ball, one strike. Now 2-1. Profar, though, one of the happiest Rangers to be home as far as what he's done baseball-wise. He's hit .373 in this ballpark. On the road this year, he has hit only .233. The 2-1 from Mengden. Left center field. Chris Davis on the move, makes the catch. Back to first, Delino DeShields. That is out number 1. Profar hit it well, but Davis able to track it down.
Concentration in his eyes. Making the play. That ball carried pretty well. Looked like it hit one well, get it up in the air, a little bit of power. You got a chance to shoot one out of here.
Nomar Mazara went down swinging back in the 1st inning. I mentioned Nomar hit safely in the last 6 games, but he also hit .323 on the just concluded road trip. Went 10 for 31. Had a home run on Saturday in Kansas City. That snapped a 27-game homer drought for him. One ball and no strikes. Mazara, as is true with most Rangers, hitting better here at Globe Life Park than he is on the road. A .317 home average. Just .262 on the road. And ball 2 sails high and away. The Rangers in general have played good baseball at home the entire year. 29-15. They have played 11 more road games than home games this year. So see the schedule turning around in the Rangers' favor. The last 62 ball games after tonight have 10 more at home than on the road. Jeff Bannister's club, one of the top 3 home records in the American League. Two balls and a strike. High fly ball to center. Smolinski now having to come back in a little bit. The wind had its full effect on that towering fly ball. That is out number 2, and it'll be up to Ian Desmond.
Now, Nomar saw several changeups in that at bat, and he waited just like he wanted to on that one. He just got underneath it a little bit. Skied it straight up in the air to center field. He wasn't fooled by the pitch, just didn't quite hit it solidly. Mengden's walked about 4.5, a little more than 4.5 batters per 9 innings this year, but against the Rangers, he's pitched right around 9 innings. He's only walked 1 against the Rangers.
Here's Desmond, who homered to right field in the first. Mengden going to make sure that Delano DeShields knows that he's paying attention to him. Desmond now 19 home runs, 60 driven in. That average at .313. A little tapper out in front of the plate. And the throw to first by McBride in time to get Desmond. The Rangers are finished in the third. No runs, a hit, 1 man left after 3. 5-1 Oakland on Fox Sports Southwest.
The score 5-1 in favor of Oakland, and it was the news we kind of thought was coming, but today made official that Prince Fielder will miss the rest of the season. He is expected to have season-ending surgery sometime this week. I asked John Daniels how he thought that would change the team's plans as they approach the trade deadline next week.
Felt like one of the strengths on the club was the offensive depth. You know, we've seen Jurickson get more playing time. We called Delino up. He's done nicely. A lot of confidence in Arua. You know, we can go to Joey at some point if there's an opening and they're at bats, and others, you know, that we feel confident in. So you know, we've still been primarily focused on the pitching side. Any moves that we may make.
And obviously the production of Prince Fielder wasn't where he wanted it to be this season, what he expected of himself or the team for that matter. But you have to think that, and JD pretty much confirmed that it had been a nagging injury for Prince. He was not here today, so he wasn't able to tell us, you know, when that neck pain started for him, and how much it affected his play to this point in the season. And you talk about the numbers and the production wasn't there, but one thing that was, guys, and I think you can attest to this, is Prince's presence in that clubhouse and the effect that he had, not only on the younger guys but on the veteran guys as well. He's very much a part of the fabric of that clubhouse, and even though you can't measure that and there are no numbers to quantify that, it is a very real thing inside that clubhouse, and one that will be sorely missed, because when you're not, as you guys know, in the lineup every day, you don't tend to not be able to have that same effect throughout the course of a season.
Yeah, good points, Emily, and that's true. I think that the Rangers players would do well if they encourage Prince whenever he can to come on in and be part of it. A base hit to right center field. Desmond's going to hold Semien to a long single. Semien with his first hit. He is aboard to start the fourth.
2 times through the lineup, there have been a lot of hard hit balls. 4 doubles in the 3rd inning, a home run and a line drive to left in the 1st inning, and several of the outs have been hit hard as well. So the A's, not necessarily a proficient offensive team, but so far in this game they're looking like it.
Yeah, the A's came in 12th in the American League in team batting. They're 251, but you wouldn't know that by how they're swinging the bats here this evening.
Now they're hitting .214 with 11 runs over their last 5 games. Making up for lost time tonight.
So 7 hits so far off of Martin Perez. Matt McBride, a strikeout his first time.
Well, Buzz, looking down at the ball field, one of the benefits of being on the road has nothing to do with the players. I don't know that there's been a benefit to them being on the road, but there's been a benefit to the playing surface of our ballpark. This is, I think, by far the best it's ever been.
Not in time. Elvis tried to flip it backhanded and then out of the glove, and didn't look like it came out very cleanly. And sliding in safely ahead of the bouncing throw was Marcus Semien.
Yeah, it looked off the bat like it was going to be a possible double play, but Elvis had to go so far. I don't know if he could have gotten the ball out of his glove with his hand. If he could have gotten it there quicker, but he chose to make the flip, but the ball was in the tip of his glove, and when it came out, it came to Jurickson like a changeup.
Yeah.
So could he have put his right hand in his glove and flipped it backwards? Maybe. Still would have been a tough play, though. Thought it was going to be a simple double play if it was hit a little bit more toward shortstop. Let's see about this. Boy, that's a lot closer than I thought it was.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't think there was any doubt that he was safe.
Yeah.
That was pretty close. It's not close enough for a challenge, though. Anyway, before the pitch, the field, I don't think, Buzz, at the end of July has ever been better than it is right now. There's not one spot on the field that's not in perfect shape. So kudos to Dennis Klein and his crew.
Yeah, they had done a great job.
Got a beautiful ballpark.
Well, here's Jed Lowry, who is 2 for 2 tonight, a single and a double, and he takes strike 1. Lowry singled to open up the game, and in the 3rd inning, double to lead off that frame. Went over to 3rd on a ground out, and then 3 consecutive 2-out doubles by the A's. Pushed across their 3 runs in that 3rd inning. This could be a double play. Elvis will step on the bag and fire to Morley.
That one stayed close enough to Elvis where he could make the play. Very similar kind of ball. And Martin gets another double play at a time in the game where he really needed one.
Second double play turned by the Rangers tonight. It's kind of how they draw it up in the book of baseball. Get that double play.
Yeah, make it so easy. You don't even need to flip the ball. Just keep it yourself. Make the throw on to first.
2 outs. Semien at 3rd. Jake Smolinski takes strike 1, a straight changeup. Smolinski 0 for 2. He grounded into the first double play. That was back in the 1st inning. Very important for Martin Perez to shut this inning down. He's gotten the double play now to get the final out without any damage done. He's going to. It's Elvis Skies to get that line drive, and that will do it. No runs, 2 hits, and 1 left after 3.5. A's 5, Rangers 1. Take a look at tonight's greater coverage of baseball, brought to you by T-Mobile. Well, the Cubs, big news in baseball today. They acquired Aroldis Chapman from the Yankees. They had to give up a lot. Number 1 prospect, Gleyber Torres, and 3 other players. Meanwhile, the Houston Astros called up their top prospect, Alex Bregman. He was the number 2 overall pick in the 2015 draft. So he did not spend much time coming up through the minor leagues. But the Astros have their top prospect in tow, and Rangers trying to get back in this ball game against Oakland. They trail 5-1 as Adrian Beltre takes strike 1. Adrian singled his first time to the plate. Rangers with 3 hits. Oakland with 8 hits. Beltre just 8 for 37 on that 9-game road trip. And our TXU Energy Power Player to Watch. The man in your picture, Adrian Beltre. 5 of his last 8 hits have been for extra bases. A couple of doubles, a triple, and a pair of home runs. 2-1. And we know the miseries the Rangers went through that road trip especially, but you look down the month of July, Rangers have only won 7 ball games. There's 7 or 6 games. They are 6-13. And you look at the batting averages for Beltre and for Desmond, and right on down the line, Profar. Guys having off months at the same time, and that usually spells difficulty for a ball club. Something Jeff Bannister can't work around. That ball is deep to left. If it's fair, it is gone. Foul. Wow. Just foul.
That was fair a long way down the left field foul line, and just hooked at the end, it looked like. Hoping that it hooked around the foul pole, but didn't quite do it.
Get a good look right down the line. Just by that much.
Foul by less than a foot, it looked like. Just missed, ticking the side of the foul pole.
Goodness. No, 2-2 now. Broken bat, base hit to left field.
Look how that bat broke. It sliced the top of the bat on an angle. That's about as high on the bat that I've seen one break. But There's a line drive to left field for the second hit of the game for Adrian. Be a good shot. Crack. Hit it right near the trademark, it looked like.
Ball hit it right on the release button. Released the head of that bat from the rest of it. So, Adrian has half the Ranger hits tonight. He's 2 for 2. Leadoff single brings up Rougned Odor, and Odor, first ball swinging, pops it up. Healy being called off by Semien. Marcus Semien, the shortstop, makes the grab. One gone. Odor, after striking out in the first inning, pops out here on the first pitch he sees in the fourth. Elvis Andrus will be next. Elvis lined to right field as he got off the second inning tonight. Elvis, the guy that has had the best success in the month of July for the Rangers, batting .328 for the month. Leads the Rangers in everything from on-base percentage to RBI. And 11 RBIs in this month, along with 5 doubles. One ball, no strikes as Mengden looks over his left shoulder at first base. Matter of fact, talking about Elvis's month of July, if you go back a little bit further than the beginning of July, say the last week in June, Elvis is still the team leader with 19 RBI. He's driving in runs at a pretty prolific pace. Certainly one that's going to break his career high, which is 67. Ahead in the count here. Rangers trying to get back on the board against Daniel Mengden. And 3-1. Well, Elvis, the advantage in the count, trying to get aboard to join Adrian Beltre. Mitch Moreland, the Ranger first baseman, looms in that on-deck circle. Tom told you Mengden has been known to go through fits of wildness. That's one where he just wasn't real sure about the pitch that he decided to throw, and I'll throw one to first base just for the heck of it. I know that one's not going to get hit. McBride flashing the signs out. Mengden has one he wants this time. And Elvis rips it foul. It's into the club level, well down the left field side.
He waited on the changeup pretty well, but not quite enough to keep it fair. Good swing, solid contact. I think that ball was a little bit more out over the plate, but it kind of tailed inside, and Elvis couldn't keep that one fair.
Well, 3-2 now. Beltre, modest lead at first as Mengden sets. Beltre on the move. The pitch is low. Ball 4. And that'll put 2 aboard now for Moreland. Folks, a reminder, mark your calendars because the next Texas Chili Company Dollar Hot Dog Night is coming up Wednesday. It's July 27th. Oakland, the Rangers play the last game of this series. Come on out to the ballpark early and enjoy all the hot dogs you can eat for just $1 each. Get your tickets today at TexasRangers.com or by calling 972-RANGERS.
That girl must have lost a bet that had the baseball on her head. Yeah, she doesn't look happy. Oh, there's somewhat of a smile. But no one else has that on.
I think she's really mad at whoever talked her into wearing that. Mitch Moreland with 2 on and 1 out. Takes the changeup that floats in for strike one. Moreland, a strikeout victim back in the second inning. Rangers with 2 on base at the same time for the first time tonight. So we'll see if they can't turn this into some runs. They trail 5-1 at the moment. Little looper out in the shallow center. Semien going out makes the catch. Everybody retreats to their bases. That is out number 2. And it'll be up to Bobby Wilson if the Rangers are to keep this inning going.
The catcher, Bobby Wilson.
Daniel Mengden, as you'll find with a lot of young pitchers, just trying to get their feet wet at the big league level. It's okay the first 2 innings of a ball game, both in ERA and opponent's average, but after you see him once or twice in a ball game, if he's still around, guys have a tendency to zero in on what he's been featuring. Bobby Wilson 0 for 1, a ground ball to third back in the second. One ball and no strikes. Hayes with Wilson up there into an overshift where they have the second baseman Lowry playing over on the shortstop side of second. Seeing more and more teams do this to right-handed hitters where you hardly ever saw that before. And more teams, I guess, with the amount of statistical analysis available to them have found that percentages favor them with most right-handed hitters to do that. Bob Melvin keeping an eye on things. Rangers with 2 on and 2 outs here in the 4th inning. One and 2. That fastball up there about shoulder high, pretty tough to catch up with it.
Yeah. Having to chase it.
McBride flashing the signs out. And now Mengden ready to go. Wilson loops one down the left field line. In a hurry is Davis. He can't get there. Beltre scores. Into third is Elvis. At second with the RBI double, Bobby Wilson. And it's a 5-2 Oakland lead.
Well, it's kind of a similar base hit that Valencia had. Valencia served his down the right field line. Bobby's out in front of a ball. Looked like a curveball. And he served it down the left field line. Both of them drove in a run with those base hits.
A little lob shot down there.
Yep.
Perfectly placed.
Only question on both of them was would they stay fair, and obviously they did.
Well, Kurt Young, he's pitching coach out there to talk to Daniel Mengden and Matt McBride, the catcher. Well, the Rangers have cut into the lead. They now trail by 3. They've got the tying run coming to home plate in the person of Delino DeShields. The RBI, by the way, for Bobby Wilson is 21st as a Ranger. His 23rd for the season. Delino led off the 3rd with a single to center. One strike to him. Elvis down there at third base. Out at second is Bobby Wilson. 2 outs, an 0-1 count. 1-2.
Boy, one's right on top of the other. Right in the middle of the strike zone, right at the bottom of the strike zone. Same pitch. Cut fastball, look low. Fox track says high enough.
So Delino now going into protect mode. Got him swinging. Good off-speed pitch by Mengden. The slow breaking ball, and that'll do it. Rangers score a run on 2 hits but leave 2 after 4. 5-2 Oakland. On Fox Sports Southwest is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. And by the all-new 3-row Mazda CX-9, meticulously crafted for driving because driving matters. Top of the 5th inning, Martin Perez out to the hill. He'll face the middle of the Oakland order, Josh Reddick, leading off. And Reddick takes ball 2. Reddick reached on an error in the 1st inning. That led to the 2-run home run by Danny Valencia. Both those runs unearned. And Perez missing outside. 3 balls, no strikes. Now, averages going back to 2014 against the Rangers. Josh Reddick 4th on that list. Cabrera, Chisnall, and Brantley, the only ones with higher averages against Ranger pitching. 3-1 to Reddick. Reddick will be followed by the first baseman, Danny Valencia. Out of play, and that fills the count. So Martin, who worked around back-to-back singles that opened up the 4th inning. And a double play and then a line out by Smolinski. Trying to come back from a 3-0 hole and get Reddick. Got him swinging. Good job by Martin.
There's a good sinking fastball. Everything about that pitch was good. 94 miles an hour, location down around the knees, good sinking movement. And there's the result. And the way he swung at it and the way the ball moved, it looked like a changeup. The only thing was, it was going 94 miles an hour.
Well, it was a change of pace. It was a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Well, second strikeout for Perez tonight. Here's Valencia. And a hopper picked off by Beltre. 2 gone. Well, the first time that Valencia has made an out tonight. And Adrian Beltre had to play a tricky in-between hop to get him.
Yeah, that kind of a hop eats up certain infielders when you wait back, but Adrian doesn't really matter. He charges it, he'll catch it. Wait back, it doesn't matter. Couldn't charge it, waits back, and look where the ball landed. Right in the pocket of his glove. Not off the heel of his glove, not off his chest. Pick it up and throw it, just right in the pocket of his glove.
Get that ball magnet in there. Something. Chris Davis taking strike 1. Davis has walked and doubled. Scored a run. He has driven in a run tonight. Chris Davis has been a real thorn in the side of Ranger pitching. That's a little bit low. Mentioned the RBI that Davis had his last time up, his 16th of the year. This is the 8th game that he has played in against the Rangers this year. That's a little bit low, and it's 2-1. He's also had 5 home runs, and he has gone 10 for 25. Two balls and a strike. Profar right behind the bag at second. And there is a 1-2-3 inning, just exactly what Martin Perez and the Rangers were looking for. We have played half the ball game tonight. It's the A's 5, the Rangers 2 on Fox Sports Southwest. Tickets include food and beverage and one of the best views at Globe Life Park, and it's all in air-conditioned comfort. Tickets to the Hyundai Club are available for $50 each this Tuesday and Wednesday. Rangers taking on these Oakland A's. To purchase your Hyundai Club tickets, visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS. Rangers have the top of the order here in the bottom of the 5th inning, trailing 5-2. Jurickson Profar shoots one up the middle into center field, a base hit. Marcus Semien looking around like he didn't see the ball coming off the bat, or it took a hop that he wasn't expecting. He kind of dove, and then from the ground was looking around like, what in the world just happened?
I don't know if there's anything he could have done to catch that ball, but he did look like he was uncomfortable. Yeah, something happened.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly what.
You know, Jurickson applauding himself. Yeah, that's what I've been looking
nice
for.
going, Jurickson.
We've been looking for that. Only his second hit in his last 23 at-bats. Now, 1 on, nobody out. Here's Nomar Mazara, who is 0 for 2. Nothing in 1 on the foul ball. Mazara has struck out and skied to center field tonight. The Rangers, as a team coming in tonight, hitting at .264. That's 6th in the league. They have not fared well, hitting only .232 since the All-Star break. On base percentage wise, they are just below the middle of the pack at .322. That's 9th. 1-1. The home run that Ian Desmond hit in the first inning was number 125 for the Rangers. And that puts them right squarely in the middle of the pack in the American League. Here's Ian. That was his 19th. Nomar Mazara would love to get aboard for Ian Desmond. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Nomar still leading American League rookies in most offensive categories. Leads him in hits. He has 96 hits so far. Total bases, multi-hit games, runs, walks, RBI. And he's tied for the league lead in rookies, home runs, with a dozen. And all that despite having a month-long downturn. In the dirt, nice stop by McBride. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. That's not an easy one. That thing, saw that stay right down on the, hug the ground, didn't bounce up. McBride doing a good job of getting that glove down there to cover up that 5-hole. Two and two. Top foul. We'll try it again. Nomar's had some pitches tonight. He had a 9-pitch at bat his first time up, ended up on a strikeout. He's fouled off a number of Mengden's pitches. It has not been an easy 0 for 2 for Mengden. Right-hander from Houston. He is 23 years of age. Low and outside, 3 and 2. Nomar eyeballing that. That was a pretty close pitch.
Just enough movement on it to keep it from being a strike. Tailed away.
So full count with nobody out. Profar at first. Ian Desmond, as you saw, waiting in the wings. Yeah, if Profar is running on this, this is not where you want to try to get a stealing lead at first. You want to make sure he makes the pitch before you take off if you're running. Profar on the move, the pitch outside, ball 4, and that brings Desmond to the plate. It's a tying run here in the 5th inning. And before that battle unfolds, Mengden and Desmond, we're going to send it over to Dana Larson for a Chevy game break.
The center fielder, Ian Desmond.
All right, Dana, thank you. I heard there have been a few muggings in Chicago. Apparently that was another one. Well, the Rangers with a base hit and a walk. It put 2 aboard, nobody out. Ian Desmond homered his first time up, tapped out in front of home plate his last time. And our AT&T high-speed internet replay will take you back to that first inning. Ian Desmond with number 19 as it sails out over the State Farm sign. Desmond now the undisputed team leader with those 19 home runs. 1-0 as Mengden sets. Average at .312 for the Rangers center fielder. On base plus slugging, hovering right around that 900 mark. He has Profar at second, trailed by Mazara at first. A knee-high strike. 1-2. Right at the bottom of the zone. Profar, the lead from second, peering in. Chopper foul. We'll come back and try it again. Well, he and Desmond going back to the third week of the season. April 19th to be specific, hitting 109. And boy, since then he has been Mr. Everything for the Rangers. He has hit well late in ball games. He's the best hitter in the American League in a few categories after the 6th inning. Hitting better than .340 in his last 2 months of play. He has some big runners out there, Profar and Mazara. Rangers trailing by 3 here in the 5th inning. They could use a big hit from Desmond here. Inside, 2-2.
Yeah, and you'd have to think, Buzz, if Ian finishes the season strong and the Rangers finish the season strong, that Ian has put himself in position to be in the conversation when they talk about the most valuable player award. He's certainly been the Rangers' most valuable player. Generally, when you're a pennant contender and go to the postseason, hopefully the Rangers will, then you get a lot of consideration for that kind of award.
Outside, that fills the count. But Mengden working himself into a pretty good hole here. 3-2 to Desmond, 2 on, nobody out. Desmond hitting third, Adrian Beltre. The Ranger cleanup man is waiting.
Trying to work his way back from behind in the count.
The mustachioed Daniel Mengden peering in for the sign. Payoff pitch. Call strike 3. Bill Miller, the home plate umpire, didn't hesitate. Desmond caught looking. That is out number 1.
Yeah, it's a borderline pitch right at the bottom of the strike zone. But it's been called a strike frequently in this ball game.
No, that is the 5th strikeout for Mengden tonight. 1 big out. And now the Rangers will rely on their cleanup hitter, Adrian Beltre. Beltre 2 for 2 this evening with a pair of singles. Adrian, they average at .278. Now asked for time as Mengden and McBride not able to get together in an appropriate amount of time. Beltre tied with Desmond with those 60 runs driven in. 0-1. Beltre singled to center in the first, singled to left in the 4th. That was a leadoff single in the 4th inning, and he came around to score on Bobby Wilson's double. So Adrian now with 3 consecutive multi-hit games. Profar getting his lead from second. Mazara stepping off his lead from first. Big slow hook. 0-2. Pitch that Mengden doesn't break out all that often, but when he does, pretty tough for a hitter, I would think, to pull the trigger on it. Infield, a couple of steps around to the left for Beltre. Outfield straight away. Slow topper to third. Healy has 1 play. That's across the diamond. Beltre retired. Profar to third, Mazara to second, but there are 2 outs now, and Rougned Odor will come up.
Rangers trying to get a big hit right here. 2-out base hit and score 2 runs and make it an entirely different ball game. Been trying to pitch out of first and second. No out jam by going right through the middle of the Ranger lineup.
Odor has struck out and popped out tonight. 276 average. Takes strike one. Looks like Mengden has the ability to soften things up a little bit when he gets in trouble. Instead of trying to overthrow a fastball or overthrow a curveball, he'll back off a little bit. And the change of speed going downward gets some guys off the plate some. 1-1 now. Mengden, 81 pitches under his belt. A warm evening, although it's very comfortable at 85 degrees. Ripped to right, that's in for a base hit. 2 runs will score. Profar followed by Mazara, a big 2-out hit. There you go, Tom.
That's exactly what we needed.
Asking for right there. Odor comes through. It's a 5-4 Oakland lead.
Yeah, Martin Perez is trying to keep it a 5-run total for the A's, and the Rangers trying to come back and make a game out of it. Get the first 2 men on. You hate to squander the chance. First and second, nobody out with the middle of the lineup hitting, and they didn't. Got through 2 guys, but not the third. Left that ball up and out over the plate. Rugi ripped it into right field. Odor's been pretty hot, hitting 400 in his last 6 games. Picks up a couple of RBIs right here.
You know, that puts Odor over 50, making it 51 RBI for the year. And he's carrying the tying run over there at first base. Kurt Young, another trip to the mound as the Oakland bullpen starts to heat up. Elvis Andrus to the plate. Elvis is lined to right field and walked tonight. 0 for 1, hitting at .291. Rangers now with 7 hits to their ledger. Inside corner, called strike one. Pretty generous inside corner.
Yeah, that's a tough call if you're a hitter.
I think hitters probably are more surprised when they get a pitch off the plate called a strike inside than they are outside.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The umpire's standing right there looking at the inside corner. That's a little bit low.
But, you know, as long as it comes on the first strike, no big deal. You got 2 left.
Right.
Had that called a strike on the 3rd strike, then it's a little bit different. You know, if a pitch is a little bit high or a little bit low, you still have a chance to hit it. But that pitch is pretty tough to hit.
Yeah. There's that big, slow breaking ball, and Elvis now down on the count, and a ball and 2 strikes. I believe that's the first time Elvis had seen that pitch tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. First couple of innings, Mengden went pretty much fastball exclusively to establish his fastball. And since he's been in trouble, he's throwing everything he's got trying to get out of trouble.
Odor at first, stepping off a pretty good size lead. Fastball up under the chin of Elvis. It's 2-2. Inning by inning now. 21 in that first inning, and then a very quick second inning for Mengden. Since then, 11 in the third, and he is up over 22 in each of the last 2 innings. 26 right now. Outside, a full count. Though with 2 outs now, Odor will have the advantage of a running start. Hendricks, the right-hander, Zepchinski, the left-hander, in that Oakland bullpen. Elvis batting 6th, trying to get aboard to join Odor. Mitch Moreland in the on-deck circle. Odor on the move, payoff pitch. We'll reset and try it again. Odor retracing his steps. Hector Ortiz, the Ranger first base coach, keeping an eye on him. Daniel Mengden now up over almost to 90 pitches for the night. Right-handers ready. Elvis intently waiting. And another foul ball. This kind of at bat, and Bob Melvin would tell you this kind of at bat in the first inning doesn't bother you too much, but after you've gotten up to the upper 80s pitch-wise and you have a long at bat, pitchers kind of hit that wall in the 5th inning. Another 3-2 is coming. Inside, ball 4. And that's going to put 2 aboard for Moreland, and we'll see what that does as far as Bob Melvin is concerned. Well, there's the answer right there. He's going to get Zepchinski, the left-hander, into the ball game, and Daniel Mengden will not make it through 5 innings tonight. He will leave leading 5-4, but 2 runners on base, his responsibility. He goes 4 2/3. So, pitching change underway here at Globe Life Park. Rangers making some noise. They trail by 1. We're back right after this on Fox Sports Southwest. Fireworks show is coming up this Friday, presented by Sherwin-Williams. Rangers take on the Royals, I should say, at 7:05. And get your tickets today at TexasRangers.com, or you can call 972-RANGERS. Well, the 30-year-old left-hander Mark Zepchinski has come out of the A's bullpen to take over. Zepchinski, his 45th ball game of the year. He has only worked 30 innings. He's pretty much a left-handed matchup specialist. He is matching up against Mitch Moreland here. Zepchinski giving up a .269 batting average to the opposition. Rougned Odor and Elvis Andrus at 2nd and 1st, respectively. Moreland tonight has struck out and popped out. 0-1. Zepchinski originally came up with the Toronto Blue Jays back in 2009. Spent 2.5 years in St. Louis. Pitched in Cleveland for a couple of years, San Diego a bit last year. And now with the Oakland A's. He is from the same high school out in Anaheim, California that produced Steve Buechele, Survey High School. They were a few years apart, I think, but Boo doesn't look that old.
Now, is that a high school you would have played against when you were in high school?
Yeah, we did.
Same conference?
Yep.
I see that name a lot. That must have been a pretty good high school in a lot of different sports, isn't it?
It's a Catholic school, it's a private school, and they have great sports programs. A good academic school, too. They're very highly rated. 1 ball and 1 strike. It's trying to gather his thoughts as he faces Zepchinski.
They're looking for one more big 2-out hit. Trying to get back in the routine they were in earlier in the year, those 5-run innings. No one was getting 5-run innings like the Rangers.
Pulled into the ship, and now Zepchinski's covering first. Moreland is out by half a step. Well, Valencia went after it, couldn't get it, but the second baseman Lowry made a quick throw to Zepchinski covering, and we're going to play right at the bag. Zepchinski there and beat Moreland just by that much. Well, the Rangers make it close, 5-4 Oakland now as we go to the 6th.
Before the game, the Fox Sports Fan Express rolling in from Big D on hand. The G-Bag Nation, that's right, there they are. Plenty of 105.3 The Fans. We got Gavin, we got Mike, we got Jeff. All right, you guys had a nice ride over, a quick ride, and you're almost looking at a comeback here, Gavin.
Well, the Fox Sports Southwest Express bus is pure luxury, and yes, we're 80% the way to a comeback. It's coming in the second half of the game. Can't wait. Of nearly equally important measures, Jim, this is the 2016 G-Bag Nation flag. It'll be available in October, right as the time the Rangers are making a big run.
Very nice. Mike, any baseball nuggets tonight?
Well, we had a little Karate Kid on the mound for the Oakland A's. He's going up, down, around, and then broke the glass. Luckily, the Rangers got him out. Hopefully, we get a comeback because I don't want to tell anybody this, but we've never been to a game on the Fan Express and won a game. We're
Jeff, that's not good.
Yeah, you don't say that.
Don't tell anybody.
I've seen a lot of episodes of Saved by the Bell. I've seen a lot of episodes of Family Matters. Things don't always look great mid-episode. Fast forward to the end, it'll work out.
Yeah, I like that positive thought. All right, guys, good to have you out here. Look for a comeback here. All right, appreciate it, Buzz.
All right, Doxy. Thought Basket was going to get assaulted there for saying that. Billy Butler leading things off, and Martin Perez has gone to a full count. Butler, 1 out of 2 tonight, an RBI double his last time up. 5-4, Oakland on top. We play in the top of the 6th inning. Perez with the 3-2 pitch. Base hit to right field. Mazzara over to cut it off, and Butler,
go for it.
Not the most fleet of foot, slammed on the brakes at first. His second hit of the night, a leadoff single here in inning number 6.
He kind of fought that fastball off and found a spot in front of Nomar in right field. Yeah, right off the end of the bat, it looked like. Ball had some pretty good movement on it. Great shot at what Nomar's looking at. I don't think Butler was really serious about going to second, but took a nice turn anyway. Like to see the hustle.
So Doug Brocail once again out to have a chat with his battery. Martin Perez, Bobby Wilson. Action in the Ranger bullpen. Tony Barnett up and loosening now.
Well, we talked about one of Martine's best weapons, and that's the ground ball double play. So there's another good spot for one. He's had 2 of them in the ball game, 1 in the first, 1 in the fourth. And now that it's a 1-run game, it'd be a beautiful spot for one right here in the 6th.
He's facing the young third baseman Ryan Healy for the 3rd time.
Decent pitch count, Buzz. Only 76 pitches.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of strikes. 55 out of 76 pitches have been strikes. Martine's only problem is a couple of innings they hit him pretty hard.
The 1 inning in the 3rd, they got to him with 4 doubles in the inning, and they were all hit pretty well.
Two of the runs in the 1st inning were unearned. 2 quick outs on the double play, an error, and then a home run.
No balls, 2 strikes as Healy shoots one into the seats. Ranger infield, a step around to the left for Ryan Healy. The outfield a little further around to the left side. 0-2. Double play ground ball. Beltre, Profar, Moreland.
All you have to do is you just have to think about it and ask for it, Buzz, and it seems to happen today.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, we're on a pretty good roll.
3rd double play of the evening. How about that? Martin Perez now with 25 double plays turned behind him this year.
Well, in this kind of a game where they've had a lot of base runners and scored some runs, double plays have kept Martin in the game.
Yep.
Kept his pitch count down. He's still under 80 pitches, and he's in the 6th inning.
No, base is empty, and Marcus Semien takes low. Semien 1 for 2 tonight. He had a shot up the middle his first time that Jurickson Profar made a fantastic play on to flag down and throw him out. Slow breaking ball. It is 1-1. Here's the inning by inning comparison. Martin Perez, 19 the most. That was in the 1st inning. Other than that, he has been remarkably efficient. And again, what you were saying, Tom, double plays have probably saved him 7, 8, 9 pitches per inning that he's had the double play.
You're right. He lost 9 pitches on the error in the 1st inning, so he's needed to make up some ground.
2-2. Martina, good ball strike ratio, 23 balls, 60 strikes out of his 83 pitches. Semien, a .234 hitter. Got him swinging.
There you go.
Martin gets his 3rd strikeout, gives up a hit, but the 2-ball helps him out. 3 up and 3 down, the result after 5.5. Oakland leading 5-4. Folks, it's time now for the Sonic Slam Inning, brought to you by Sonic. And tonight's jackpot is worth $400 and dinner for two at Sonic Drive-In. If a Ranger hits a home run during the inning, Tony Tanos from Dallas will win $400. And if a Ranger hits a grand slam this inning, Tony is going to take home $25,000. You can register at any participating Sonic restaurant. And along with the Sonic Slam Inning, we have a new pitcher on the hill, Liam Hendriks, the Australian. Born and raised in Perth, Australia. He's a 27-year-old. Acquired by the Oakland A's from Toronto in exchange for Jesse Chavez this past offseason. So Hendriks now on for his 25th appearance of the year. He will face Bobby Wilson to start things off, followed by Delino DeShields and Jurickson Profar. And Hendriks pumps in strike one. Bobby Wilson, an RBI double his last time up. Probably getting a little something in his eyeball. Hendriks from the stretch. He pumps in strike two. Hendriks originally signed by the Minnesota Twins back in 2007. And Wilson pops it up. Back behind first, Valencia has it for out number one. Wilson pops out. Delino DeShields. Delino has singled and struck out tonight. Daniel Mengden, the starter for the A's this evening, went 4 2/3. Gave up 7 hits, all 4 runs. They were earned with 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. A knee-high strike, 0-1. Mark Zepchinski came on to get the final out of the 5th inning and thereby becoming the pitcher of record, at least for the moment. Out of play. Hendriks the advantage at 0-2. Rangers hoping that Delino DeShields will have the same kind of turnaround that Rougned Odor did last year, getting off to a little bit of a slow start. Odor, you'll remember, went down for about 6 weeks to AAA Round Rock, came back and just tore the cover off the ball for the last 3.5 months of the season. And Delino DeShields hoping for the similar kind of results. He's been told to get his speed game back where it needs to be. He's gone on strikes here. Hendriks gets the punch out. The out recorded at first. There are 2 gone.
A pretty good slider right there by Hendriks. Got what looks like a sneaky fastball. I've seen him throw harder than 94 on occasion. Today it's 93, 94, but he's got like a little short arm action where the ball comes out right from behind his head. Maybe a little tough for a hitter to pick up. But again, when you're seeing a guy you haven't seen very often and you see that hard slider with 2 strikes first time you've seen it, tough to lay off it.
No bases empty for Jurickson Profar, who singled his last time to the plate. And first ball swing, he pops it up. Semien is shallow left field, calling everybody off, and that'll do it. So Hendriks comes on, has a very quick and tidy 1-2-3-6. On to the 7th we go, 5-4 Oakland. for a four-game summary, and it got started on a sour note after a two-out error. Danny Valencia, a two-run shot in the first, put the A's on top. Ian Desmond cut that lead in half, his 19th home run of the year in the bottom of the first. Then the A's had a big third inning. Billy Butler finished things off with an RBI double. That was a three-run third, 5-1. Rougned Odor, a big two-out run-scoring base hit in the fifth. Got the Rangers within one. As we go to the seventh inning now, it's still 5-4 Oakland, and Matt Bush has come out of the Ranger bullpen to take over. Matt, appearing in his 31st ball game, he gives up a single on the first pitch that he throws to Matt McBride. And the ball gets by, and now McBride going into second, and he's in with a slide.
Second baseman, Jim.
Delino Shields not able to handle that ground ball out there. It got off his glove, and it's going to be a single and an error.
And that kind of a play, you've got the catcher that hit the ball, so there's no threat of him going to second base. That's just a ball that was probably easier for Ian to field, coming straight on towards second base with it. But nevertheless, a simple ball for either one of them. And just the kind of play you don't like to make in the seventh inning of a one-run game.
And the second Ranger error of the night.
First one led to 2 unearned runs.
Well, McBride at second takes the A's back to the top of their order. Jed Lowry is 2 for 3 tonight, a single and a double. Throw down to second, but McBride able to get in under the tag of Elvis Andrus.
Now for Martin Perez, after a pretty shaky third inning where he gave up the 4 doubles, after that he pitched 3 shutout innings. Got a couple of double plays that helped him, but finished the game strong.
1-2. Yeah, and that's something you can build on for next time. It does point out, though, what Jeff Bannister was talking about cutting down or eliminating that big inning where it gets out of control just for a short period of time. Tonight, it was a 3-run inning. Those 4 doubles that mounted up on Martin Perez.
Yeah, they all came with 3 of them in a row came with 2 outs.
Two balls and 2 strikes, the count to Lowry. Lowry, a switch hitter, turning around to bat from the left side against the right-hander Bush. Get a good look at it. Matt McBride out there at second. Breaking ball stayed a little bit high, and the count is full. Matt Bush on here in the 7th inning, trying to keep this at a 1-run deficit for the Rangers. Payoff pitch on the way. That's sliced out of play to the left. Still 3-2. Lowry, the leadoff man, to be followed by Jake Smolinski. Breaking ball, see you later.
After they had a couple of good swings at 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, but in this full count, you're not quite ready for the hammer. He knew it was a strike.
And with Matt Bush out there, we'll show you our Kubota power stats for tonight. Last 8 ball games, Matt has worked 9 innings, has not given up a run, and opponents have hit an unrobust 167. Smolinski right off the end of the bat. Moreland will take it to the bag. That is out number 2. McBride on to third. And Josh Reddick coming up.
I guess that's being geared up to hit a fastball right there. 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
Be out in front of it a little bit.
Be out in front of it, yeah. Then we're getting a first pitch fastball.
Oh, that was that little cutter too.
At 95.
Yeah.
I saw the radar gun speed, just assumed it was his regular fastball. No wonder it hit him off the end of the bat.
He had a little something extra for Jake. Yes. Just in case.
It really seems when Matt has rest, that his fastball has a little more life, a little more velocity. His other pitches do too. The only time he got into a little bit of a problem, if you want to call it that, was when he was forced to pitch a little more frequently than Jeff Bannister might have liked.
Yep.
But, you know, you have to do what you have to do to win major league games. I thought it was really interesting today reading what Banny had said early in the season, anticipating the long road schedule that was coming up.
Mazara coming on. That's going to fall for a base hit. In to score is McBride. Reddick got sawed off, but dumped it into right field. A key RBI single. That makes it a 6-4 Oakland lead.
That's too bad. Make a pitch. Hit the guy on the part of the bat you want to hit him on. Trying to throw it in. Cutter inside corner. Jammed him. Still got a base hit. But Banny was talking early in the season about going for every win that he could get, knowing how tough the schedule was going to be that the Rangers just ended up with. All those road games, not many off days. He wanted to pile up as many wins as he could early, try to weather the storm and come back strong in the last couple of months. So in spite of the downturn, the Rangers are still a couple of games in first place.
Profar on to Moreland. That'll do it. But Reddick's 2-out single drives home a run. We'll take the stretch here at Globe Life Park with the A's leading the Rangers 6-4. And on this date in 1999, Nolan Ryan inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And Ryan, of course, Nolan with his number retired here at Globe Life Park as a member of the Rangers, went in with a Ranger hat on. Cold Hard Fact brought to you by Clean Crisp Coors Light. John Axford, veteran reliever now, on to pitch here in the 7th inning. Axford to face Nomar Mazara, Ian Desmond, and Adrian Beltre. Axford, his 44th appearance of the year. His ERA rather inflated at over 4.9. 33-year-old right-hander out of Ontario, Canada. Nomar Mazara walked and scored in that 2-run Ranger 5th inning. One and one the count. Axford, a well-traveled right-hander. Originally came up with the Milwaukee Brewers back in 2009. Pitched with them until 2013, then spent a little time in St. Louis. 1 and 2. Had stops at Cleveland and Pittsburgh. His last year in Colorado, and 60 games with the Rockies last year. The 1-2 to Mazara. That will even the count. Axford, a tall, lanky right-hander, went to Notre Dame University. Omar fighting that off to the left. Still 2-2. Seen Mazara in the last several games, maybe last handful of games, really focus on taking the ball the other way, up the middle to left field. And that's what really got him where he was when he first came to the big leagues, his ability to do that. That's out of play. I think he kind of got away from that, got a little, maybe a little pull happy for a while.
Yeah, and you never know what's going through a player's mind, young or old, but a while back, he hit some tape measure home runs, including that 490-foot home run here. And so even if it's subconsciously, even if you don't think you're thinking it, in the back of your mind, you know what you've done, and it felt good, and you figure, I'll keep trying to do it, and maybe you do get a little pull conscious instead of going with what got you there.
Axford gets him on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball. That is out number one. Before Ian Desmond steps in, we're going to send it over to Dana Larson for a Chevy game break. All right, Dana, thank you.
Yeah, I kind of wish the Yankees waited to trade Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, at least for 3 days, huh?
Yeah, they might need him today in a one-run game. Of course, they've got a couple of other guys out there that are pretty good.
Yeah, Dylan Betances and Andrew Miller.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Not bad. Actually, having Chapman was kind of overkill, quite honest.
I'd like to see him overkill for those 3 games against the Astros. How about Chapman threw a ball 105 miles an hour.
Desmond chops it foul, 0-2. Yeah, and that only tied his best. But in that game, what did he have? 7? I think he threw like 20 pitches. He had 7 of them over 104.
Wow,
that's ridiculous. You know, by all rights, his arm should fall off. I'm not trying to be mean-spirited about it, but he really should. Throw a ball that hard for him.
Well, if it was Naked Gun, you could probably make it fall off right in the middle of his throw.
That's true. And Desmond.
Axford tuning it up
for that. Yes, he is.
96 miles an hour on the scoreboard. Radar gun. Two batters, 2 strikeouts. Axford's got the high ERA, but pumping in some quality strikes right there. Fastball at 96 on the outside part of the plate. You know the guy's throwing pretty well when Ian Desmond has a swing for strike 3 like that.
Well, 2 up, 2 punch outs. And here is Adrian Beltre, who is 2 for 3. Pair of singles, a run scored. 1 ball and no strikes. Adrian, you can see a 277 average. Facing Axford with the bases empty and 2 outs here in the 7th inning. One ball and 1 strike. Beltre, 2 out of 3 in his career against Axford. One thing these stats don't tell you is how Axford was throwing in those 3 at bats. He's throwing like he is tonight. I don't think the numbers will be quite that good. McBride flashing the signs out. Axford picks one out. Beltre shoots one deep down the right field line. Hit it toward the pole. Goodbye. Wow.
Yeah, he just missed one to left field earlier in the game by about 6 inches. And this one, I'm not sure how fair it was. Might have been 6 inches fair to the left of the foul pole. Of course, if it hit that part of the foul pole, it's about a foot fair to begin with on that wide part of the foul pole. Well, it's a line shot right toward the wedgie down the right field line. A little bit of a cutting action on that fastball. Adrian just stayed right with it.
A second Ranger home run of the night. Adrian Beltre with his 15th home run of the night.
Oh boy. Get out of the way.
That just flew right over the wedgie.
A little guy in the front row and back of the wedgie. I'm not sure if he was thinking about catching it, but right at the end he ducked out of the way. I hope he did get out of the way. That was a pretty well hit line drive.
Well, a 6-5 Oakland lead. Here's Rougned Odor. Rougned was trying to tie this ball game up with that.
Watch this little guy. Should I catch it? Hit the rail right in front of him. That was a good move. Without a glove, that was a very good move.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it hit the rail instead of your hip.
You wanted the ball very badly, but
not that bad. Baseball is not worth it. Now, if you had a glove, you could have just reached right over and caught it.
Rangers now with 126 home runs for the year. It's back to a one-run game, and Rougned Odor had a 2-run single his last time up. Down at the feet of Odor.
How long does it take a fastball to get to home plate? What portion of a second?
4/10
of a second. It doesn't seem like you would have that much time to do that much with your body in 4/10 of a second. Because you can't start the minute he lets go of the ball. You have to see where it's going to be before you ever do that. But just how quick reflexes are that you can get out of the way of that pitch as quickly as it gets to you.
Rifled into right field, a base hit. Odor with his second. Gets the ball back in quickly. Odor was not taking anything for granted. He was going to make Reddick field the ball and come up throwing.
Well, after a couple of strikeouts, the worm has turned a little bit for Axford. Home run and a hard hit single. Ruby's had 2 ropes to right field. One a 2-run single in the 5th. And this hard hit line drive on a fastball to right field. Rangers trying to get a 2-out rally going after the home run.
Not much Valencia could do about that. That was by him before he got the glove out. Odor, his second straight single, aboard with 2 outs. Here's Elvis. Elvis tonight has walked twice and lined to right field. Andrews over the years 2 for 3 against John Axford. Elvis tuned it up for the fastball and didn't get it.
Yeah, I think you have to be tuned up for the fastball watching Axford. He's thrown a lot of 94, 96 mile-an-hour fastballs, but I think he was thinking along with Elvis there and decided I'm not going to give him one on the first pitch. I'll give him my curveball.
Tried it again, and Elvis recognized at that time. 1 ball and 1 strike. The Rangers tonight haven't really had much of an opportunity to swipe a base.
See that little move Rugi made?
Yeah.
On the lead.
Odor trying to read Axford. Right-handers ready for the 1-1.
Rudy plays with a little style. Watch this lead. Gotta like that. That's right up Adrian Beltre's alley right there.
He's been watching Adrian.
Yeah.
Been taking pointers. Got the fastball that time, and Elvis fouling it back. Down to the count now, a ball and 2 strikes. Elvis asking Bill Miller about the location of that pitch, and obviously Miller said that was probably a little high. Odor stepping that lead off. Danny Valencia, the first baseman, holding the bag against him. John Axford, the 33-year-old right-hander, leaning in for the signs. There goes Odor. The pitch is high. The throw is high. Odor safe at second base.
Oh, Ryan Blackley kept his eye on that play all the way. Saw the hand get in safe, but then Rudy slid by the bag, and I guess the question might have been whether he kept his foot on the bag. And obviously, Ryan Blackley thought he did. Bob Melvin is going to check. Let's see. Maybe we can tell. The hand is in there. When the tag came down, his foot, whoa. And they're pointing to the foot, whether it's off the bag, but Lowry might have pushed it off the bag. He missed it, missed the tag there. Okay, he's got it on the foot, Did it come off right there? Guess not.
Well, Bob Elman says, no, we're not going to talk about that one. Stolen base for Odor. So the tying run now in scoring position with 2 outs. Rugdet's 9th stolen base of the year. 2-2, the count to Elvis. Got him swinging. Axford heating it up, and Elvis caught on strike. Rangers get a run, though. Adrian Beltre's 15th home run of the year. Get him a run closer. We'll go to the 8th. 6-5 Oakland.
To Al Ledesma, comes all the way in from El Paso with his family vacation. Al has been cheering for the Rangers all game long. Big Ranger fan, but he's also had the, I guess, the rally dance. Let's see, Al, rally dance going on. Yeah, here we go.
Let's go Rangers! Let's go Rangers!
Very nice, Al. Oh, there we go. And a great play by Bush. It worked. Congratulations. There's the bag. Way to go, Al. Where's the son? What do you think about Dad? Not bad. All right, there we go. All right, Buzz.
All right, Nazi Thanks, Al.
Well, that was a rope that Chris Davis just hit. Let's see what happened. Thought he caught it.
Yeah, he did.
Kind of played highlight with it. And then it pays off to have been a shortstop the way he made the play. Watch how quickly he recovers. It's in his glove. Whoops. And look how quickly he makes that 96-mile-an-hour throw to first base.
That was a very calm.
Who did that the other day?
That was Sam Dyson.
Sam Dyson had one of his gloves kind of like that.
Yeah, it almost planted him right on the mound in that.
Yeah.
No, one out is Chris Davis. It's a rope that gets flagged down. Billy Butler takes strike one. Yeah, matter of fact, that was the big out in the ninth inning yesterday.
That's right.
In Kansas City.
That's the same one, the one that Ruge made the play at second, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, Sam knocked it down. Well, it came out of his glove, but he picked it up and threw about a 98-mile-an-hour sinker.
Catcher have a hard time blocking that one.
Yeah. 2-1 to Butler. Butler 2 for 3 tonight. RBI double and a single. A's about hit the Rangers this evening 11-9. They lead 6-5. Little high octane upstairs. 2-2. We'll try it again at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Man has been throwing the ball well. No doubt about that. And Tommy, you mentioned about the rest that he's been able to get. Him and Keone Kela come back and reestablish himself as part of that bullpen. Has given them both an opportunity to throw with a little more rest and also maybe work multiple innings the way Matt's doing it here tonight. Butler, a little service shot out there to right field. Looping single. He is aboard with 1 out before Ryan Healy steps in. We're going to send it over to Dana Larson for a Chevy game break. All right, Dana, thank you. Here, there's 1 on and 1 out. Ryan Healy takes ball 1 from Matt Bush. Healy has popped out, lined out, and grounded into a double play, which right now Matt Bush would like to make it 2 from Ryan Healy. 1-1. The last time we saw Matt was on Saturday. Ryan Dull loosening in that A's bullpen. He has been lights out for Oakland.
Guess so. I don't hear much about him, but he's having the same kind of year as Betances is without all the strikeouts.
Over the mound, Profar gets the out at first, had to avoid the umpire, and Butler safely in at second. That's a pretty athletic play by Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, and he couldn't worry about the guy running to second. I mean, he would love to have been able to tag him or get him, but got to get 1 out on this play. Well, he couldn't have done anything with a runner anyway, could he?
Do you get anything for tagging the umpire out?
He had to get out of the way of the umpire. Thought he had a shot to tag him, but right here he has no chance. I guess he could have turned and maybe kind of thrown a hook shot to second base to get the force out, but in that position, you just get the 1 out and get this hitter right here.
It looked like on that replay it's going to be scored 1-4-3. And we're going to get a pinch runner now for Billy Butler. Max Muncy, the Keller product. Max will come on as a pinch runner for Butler. Max just recalled from AAA today. There's a little tapper right back to Matt Bush. And that'll do it. So no damage done. The 1-out single by Billy Butler, the runner left stranded. 7.5 in the books. It's the A's 6 and the Rangers 5.
To the bottom of the 8th. This is the opener of a 7-game homestand and a 3-game series against the Athletics of Oakland. Game 2 coming your way tomorrow. Same time, same place here at Globe Life Park in Arlington and on Fox Sports Southwest. Pre-game coverage starts at 6:30. There you see the pitcher for the A's, Sonny Gray, with a 7.3 ERA, and Nomar Mazara swinging a hot bat of late, seemed to be coming out of his slump from earlier in the month, a 360 average in his last 7. A big thanks to the fine folks at AT&T High-Speed Internet for getting us ready for Game 2 of this series between Oakland and Texas, guys.
All right, Dan, thanks very much. And Mitch Moreland leading off the Ranger 8th inning. Ryan Dull, appearing in his 46th ball game, the 26-year-old right-hander, giving up only a 155 opponent's batting average. And Moreland chops one right over the mound to second to the shortstop, Simeon. That is out number 1.
Yeah, Dahl has a good fastball, but he's got a great slider. Gets about a strikeout per inning. He's kind of settled into the 8th inning role. One thing the Rangers won't have to face in this series, and that's the prospect of Sean Doolittle coming in late in the ball game. Tough left-hander late in the game for the A's. He's on the disabled list right now.
You know, Jeff Bannister going to the bench. His only available left-handed hitter, Jared Hoying, is now going to come out and pinch hit for Bobby Wilson. Jared Hoying in limited duty, 16 ball games, hitting at .250, 5 RBI. He takes that slider you were talking about, or cutter, I guess that one is, for ball 1. One ball and 1 strike. Dull pitched his collegiate ball at University of North Carolina in Asheville. Graduated from there and was a high round draft pick by the A's in the 2012 back, I should say a low round, 32nd round of the 2012 draft. And he maneuvered his way through the minor league system for the A's. Made his major league debut last year, 13 ball games. He went 1-2. He's always been a reliever. Been groomed to take over this spot at the big league level. Hits the outside corner. That evens the count now to Hoying at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Three and 2. Hoying trying to get aboard here with 1 out. Delino to Shields, the number 9 man, will be next. A's 6 runs on a dozen hits. Rangers 5 runs on 9 hits tonight. Rangers have the only 2 errors in this ball game. Payoff pitch. Hit well to right field. Back is Reddick on the track and makes the catch. Hoying, not quite getting enough of that. Lines to right for out number 2. Look, you can follow the Ranger Baseball live with MLB.com at Bat App. Stay up to the moment at any moment with Game Day, live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and a whole lot more. Download MLB.com at Bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone or tablet. Well, here's the Shields, who is 1 for 3, a single and a couple of strikeouts. 0-1. As you can see there, at 229 for the season. He's in his 2nd tour of duty with the Rangers. Down on the count here, 0-2. Dull back to the plate. A little tapper right back to it. You know, the Rangers go quickly and quietly. 1-2-3 in the 8th. We're going to inning number 9. The A's 6, the Rangers 5 on Fox Sports Southwest.
Rangers have hung tough in this game despite a difficult start. Down a run as we head to the top of the ninth. Dana Larson here reminding you we've got Rangers Live, the post-game edition, coming up right after the game. Mark McLemore is here. He'll break down this persistent offense. We'll talk about Martin Perez, and of course we'll have reaction from the clubhouse and Jeff Bannister. Will the skipper announce who's starting tomorrow for the Rangers? Stay tuned for all of that and much more coming up. It's coming up right after the game. Join me and Mac in just a bit, guys.
All right, Dana, thank you. Now we head to the top of the ninth inning. Jake Diekman has come out of the Ranger bullpen to take over. 29-year-old southpaw out of Nebraska, appearing in his 42nd game. Diekman still just giving up a very miserly 164 opponent's batting average, ERA at 2.5 for Jake. And Robinson Chirinos come into the ball game, and he forms the second half of the Diekman-Chirinos battery. Jared Hoying, who pinch hit for Bobby Wilson, stays in the game, takes over in left field. Matt McBride, the catcher, leading off. He pops Diekman's pitch foul, back and out of play. No balls, 2 strikes. McBride 2 for 3 tonight. Couple of singles, came around to score in the 7th inning. It was an unearned run off of Matt Bush. Foul tipped into the glove of Robinson Chirinos, who hangs on for the strikeout. One away, back to the top of the Oakland order.
Second baseman Jed Lowry.
Obviously a tough pitch to lay off of and an impossible pitch to hit.
So 1 gone. Jed Lowry has a couple of hits tonight. He is 2 for 4. He had his first 3 at bats as a right-handed hitter. In the 7th inning, turned around against Matt Bush, hit left-handed, struck out that time. And now back to the right side of the plate. 2 balls, no strikes. Lowry for the year, a .278 average. Diekman worked an inning in yesterday's ball game, just gave up 1 hit. And now he's fallen behind 3-0 to Lowry. Jake Smolinski, the center fielder in the on-deck circle. And ball 4. Lowry aboard on the 4-pitch walk. Chirinos out to say something to Diekman, see if they can get him back in the strike zone. Smolinski 0 for 4 tonight.
Center fielder Jake Smolinski.
Have handled him well. He has grounded into a double play, lined out, and twice grounded out. There's a strike. A little bit over 27,000 on hand here tonight. Turned out to be a great night for baseball. Comfortable, and temperature right now at 83. Diekman missing high, and that evens the count now at 1-1. Guess what would make it even a more pleasant night is if the Rangers could come back in the 9th inning and walk off with a victory. Keone Kela in that Ranger bullpen. Two and one. Remember, Jake Diekman, until this past Friday night, was on the disabled list, had a cut on his left hand in his middle finger. And it prevented him from really gripping the baseball the right way. Hadn't seen any sign of a problem since he came back off the disabled list on Friday. And it sure looks tonight that he's a little bit out of sorts. Falling behind Smolinski, 3-1. Jake taking his time, now back on top of the hill. A check of first, the 3-1. Down toward the handle, and Hoying camped underneath it, makes the grab, 2 gone. Deke been able to work that fastball in on the fist of Smolinski.
Right fielder Josh Reddick.
Now it'll be left-hander against left-hander as Josh Reddick comes to the plate. Jeff Bannister, Doug Brocail. Here's Colby Lewis back there. Good to see Colby. Saw Colby out before batting practice, or before the ball game today, throwing a little bit. He's just about ready to get back on the mound. Work out some. Reddick had an RBI single his last time up. He is 1 for 4 tonight. Diekman, a long look at first. He just misses off the plate. 2-0. Could have been. Just touching that outside corner. Here's a broken bat hopper right at the bag. And it is ruled a fair ball, and Moreland is standing on the bag when he made the catch.
That bat was broken, and Reddick made sure it stayed broken.
Well, that'll do it. No runs. The Walker left stranded. Bottom of the ninth coming up. Rangers trailing by 1. Get to the bottom of the ninth inning. Crowd of 27,292. Those rally caps adjusted, ready to go to work here in the bottom of the ninth inning. They will go against the closer for the Oakland A's, Ryan Madson. Madson, 44th appearance of the year. He's 21 for 26 in save opportunities, 3.40 ERA. So not exactly invincible, but has been very, very solid. 245 opponent's batting average. Yonder Alonso has come into the ballgame to take over at first base defensively. It'll be the top of the Ranger order. Jurickson Profar, Nomar Mazara, and Ian Desmond. Madsen pumps in strike one.
He's done a pretty good job today hitting that part of the strike zone. A couple of critical situations. Right at the bottom of the strike zone, borderline pitches.
Profar 1 for 4 tonight. Madsen pulling the string, and he has the advantage in the count now at 0-2. Veteran right-hander sets. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Profar has not faced Ryan Madsen before. Down on the count, 1-2. Chopper to the right side. Alonso will feed Madsen covering for the out.
Well, the defensive replacement at first, you can see why he's in there. That's a pretty nifty play.
Right fielder, Nomar Mazara.
Not saying that Valencia couldn't have made that play, but Alonso pounces on this ball, confidently gets it to the pitcher in a hurry, which gives Madsen plenty of time to find the bag and touch it. That's how you draw it up, Buzz.
Yep, exactly right. So 1 very big out. Now Nomar Mazara 0 for 3 with a walk tonight. Will step in. Mazara 1 for 1 against Madsen in previous matchups as he takes strike 1. Nomar had a single. The other time he faced the right-hander. Foul back. Madsen with the advantage on the count now at 0-2. Mazara walked and scored back in the 5th inning. Other than that, has fly to center, and twice he has struck out. The 0-2 pitch. We'll try it again. The A's defend Nomar Mazara pretty much straight away on the infield, maybe a step to the right. We've seen a lot of teams that had really not seen Mazara before overshift him to the right. It's not what Oakland has deemed the best way to defend him. Outfield, as you saw, pretty much straight away. Little looper to right field. It's in for a base hit.
That's a start.
And the Rangers have the tying run aboard with 1 out. And Ian Desmond coming up. Nomar Mazara with a 7-game hitting streak.
The ball got in on Nomar a little bit, but kind of like Reddick did for the A's last run. Able to loop it over the infield and get a base hit. Reddick's, of course, drove in the 6th run.
Ryan Rua has come off the Ranger bench now, and he is going to pinch run for Nomar Mazara. Well, Rua carrying the tying run in this ball game. Ian Desmond, the winning run at the plate. Desmond, you remember, against Madsen in Oakland, left the ballpark. A long home run against him. Taking all the way on that first pitch, it's ball 1. At-bats Desmond has against Ryan Madsen. Ian 4 for 13 with that home run. That's a .308 average. Madsen ready.
Oh, boy.
He didn't have the one he wanted there.
Yep, had a great swing and a 96-mile-an-hour heater. That made contact with the barrel of the bat, too.
What do you think to yourself as a hitter after you do that? Foul one back.
I hope I get another one. I know I had a good swing at it.
And he got one a little further down, but still in a fairly hittable spot. But the foul ball makes it a ball and 2 strikes.
That's a second good swing.
Desmond hitting at .310. Had that home run back in the first inning. Madsen a check of first. Oh, and he hung one to Desmond. Ian fouled it straight back. 3 pretty good hacks at Ryan Madsen stuff. Might have hung that too much for Desmond.
Well, Ian's had 5 go-ahead home runs after 7th inning or later, so he's been pretty good in these situations.
And Bob Melvin has seen him up close and personal in these situations. A ball and 2 strikes. The tying run at first, Ryan Rua, the pinch runner over there. Now time called. Cat and mouse game going on. Now Madsen ready. Ryan Madsen cannot run for governor tonight, or mayor, or anything else in Arlington.
If he gives up a home run right here, he can. I'll vote for him.
We're on the same ticket as Ian Desmond. Check swing, he went around. 2 out. Madsen gets the huge strikeout.
Third baseman, Adrian.
That'll be up to Adrian Beltre now. Beltre homered his last time up there. Hammered a pitch right down the right field line that got out of here by 20 feet. He is 3 for 4 this evening. Hammered deep left center field. Way back. Goodbye. Wow. Adrian Beltre and the Rangers walk it off. 7-6.
He got away with a fastball that Ian Desmond just missed. And then first pitch to Adrian, he didn't get away with that one. Second home run after the 7th inning for Adrian. And plus, it's been a while since the Rangers picked up a game in the standings. I'm not sure how long, but it's been a while.
It was June 26th.
Was it?
Yep. Last time the Rangers picked up any ground on anybody in the AL West was June 26th. And they pick one up here tonight, courtesy of Adrian Beltre. His 2nd home run of the night, his 16th of the year. And there was no doubt that this was going to land in the bullpen or beyond. So Beltre gets it done, and we will send it down to Emily Jones, who has Adrian Beltre in tow.
Yes, I do, and we're just going to get this over with. Adrian said he was going to embrace the Powerade shower today. find a way to get back to the way you were playing a month or so ago. That's one way of doing it, to hit a walk-off home run, huh?
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You know, we got behind early in the game, and Martini did a great job keeping the game close. And we know when the game is close, we got a chance. We got a really good offense, and we were able to start fighting back little by little, and finally we won the game.
For you guys getting the news today that officially Prince was out, I know that hit a lot of you guys really hard. How much, does that play into things, playing, for him with emotion, something that maybe has been missing for a little while?
Yeah, we all sad because we all love Prince. He's a great guy. It's kind of sad news for him personally. But for that, but we know that we have a couple of guys we have to step up, myself included. I think we need to be more consistent, helping the offense to score more runs, and we know that we got a really good team, even though we went through a little bad stretch, but we believe we have a good team to win right now, and that's what we're trying to prove.
And then finally, A.B. Martin struggled to start, but really settled in. For him to go 6 tonight, how big was that?
That was big. He didn't pitch bad at all. I think over the last couple of weeks or so, we've been kicking the ball around. We're not helping him. We're not helping any of the staff, everybody. We need to clean it up a little bit, play better defense, and give those guys a better chance to win the ball games.
Maybe your hair's a little wet. We'll send it back now to you guys.
All right, Em. Home runs in each of his last 2 at-bats. Adrian Beltre walked it off, a 2-run home run off Ryan Madson on the first pitch that he saw here in the 9th inning. With Ryan Rua aboard, and everybody stood behind home plate. They knew what it was all about. And Adrian Beltre went into that home run trot a little bit earlier than normal. And had that feel to it, that no contact at all, no vibration. That ball just jumped out of the ballpark, and the Rangers, first time in a long time, been able to jump off that bench in front of the home crowd and celebrate at home plate. That's a feeling that the Rangers have not had for a while, and they are loving every second of it. But we'll come back to Globe Life Park with more right after this on Fox Sports Southwest.